You might have to give me permission to record if that's all right. So welcome to Peer Supervision January 2022. Can't believe it's 2022. It's mental. All sorts been going on with the college this month. We've got new hybrid courses been launched. We've got new teachers coming on board, new supervisors coming on board. It's a really exciting time for us. But there's a huge need for supporting people in the community with mental health challenges at the moment. 230,000 new patients with PTSD are expected this year as a result of the pandemic. That's what the NHS are telling us, and that's based on what they know from people, negative experiences that people have been having as a result of the lockdowns. And that's PTSD. That's not anxiety, stress, depression, all of those other labels that get thrown around. But, you know, kids too have had it rough. And I don't know about you, but a lot of families tend to have the TV on in the background. You know, a lot of people are going to go, no, it's not us. But they have it on in the background, just like background noise, really. And if you've got it on background noise and you've got like the news on all day, or you've got daytime TV on all day, it's just been it's like vomiting, misery and fear. And that's all been going in. Certainly kids have been picking up on it. I was watching an amusing video. Two like twins actually were like playing Tig, but they were saying, you've got the COVID. No, you've got the COVID. It used to be the lurgy when we were kids. It's become you've got the COVID now. But I really just think it was quite a funny little video. But I really just think, you know, as adults, we kind of go, oh, we're having a bad day today. I'm having a bad day today. And we might reach out and get help. Hopefully we reach out and get help. But kids don't often know how to ask for help, don't often know how to understand what they're feeling or what's happening to them and what's going on really in the wide world. So, you know, I think so having this supervision on how do we work with children this month, I just thought was a really important topic to talk about. We love teaching our students at the college how to work with children. I love teaching, I should say, not we. I love teaching it because I am a big kid and I love playing. And I think I've got quite a good imagination, and children do have the most amazing imaginations and they love visualizations. When we get a bit more grown up, we kind of get to the stage where we kind of find it more difficult to imagine. We find it difficult to challenge because we've stopped doing it for a while. Children just get right into it. And I love watching kids play. You know, if they're pirates, they're you know, real pirates, aren't they? You know, when they're fairies, they're real fairies. When they're action heroes, they're real action heroes. So I just love how they're already in trance, which means they're really great to work with. Up until about the age of 10, children have very little distinction between what's real and what's fantasy, and can often create wonderful and fantastical scenarios which can actually be really well utilized in hypnosis to really help with a massive range of issues and challenges. So between sort of 10 and 12, that's when the conscious kind of critical faculty starts to develop. Up until really 7, children are sort of operating from a subconscious place. They haven't got conscious processes to kind of logically work stuff out. What, you know, how it's presented to them is how they take it in and how they understand it. So they're really open to suggestions and the impact of suggestions from at that young age. It's like a sensitive time, if you like. But when they get to sort of 10 or 12, that's when that kind of conscious critical faculty starts to develop. And that's when that filter between the logical part of the brain, the conscious mind, and the emotional imagination part of the brain, the subconscious mind. That's when that filter starts to kind of develop and come into play. And that's when we may need to start working in a slightly different way, perhaps using more of an induction. Up until about that age, I wouldn't even bother with an induction because they're already in trance when we're working with kids. So hypnotherapy, as we know, kind of relies on switching the conscious mind off, or taking the conscious mind and occupying it, or taking our clients to a place of deep relaxation where the conscious mind is just like, I'm lovely and relaxed and having a nice little holiday over here, so that we can kind of get by that critical faculty and get and access the subconscious that way, bribe the guards we talk about, and get to the part of the mind, the subconscious, where all our deep-seated emotions and behaviors are rooted. And the best way to do that with kids is to tell stories, metaphor. So absolutely love this, because I just love telling stories, and I love creating stories. And when I was a kid, I used to love writing stories. So I think this is something that I've always done. And I'm sure a lot of you enjoy writing or telling stories or making stories up with your children, or any child that you can get your hands on if you haven't got your own. I think it's really important to address parents when we're dealing with any kind of children. I actually really think that the participation of parents is really important too, and do actually have the parents present in the therapy room when I'm working with the children. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail about why. But I tend to believe, and I tend to work with quite a lot of anxious children, and I do tend to see, if I see an anxious child, the likelihood is that there's going to be anxious parents as well, particularly if the parents have a very close bond with their children. Anxious parents, I mean, it's been tough for parents, hasn't it? Anxious parents working from home, anxious parents worrying about money, anxious parents concerned about safety, anxious parents. There's so many reasons to be an anxious parent, isn't there? Kids pick up on that anxiety, even if it's kind of kept fairly secret, if it's unspoken, that kind of non-verbal language, kids pick up on that. It's you communicate in so many different other ways other than just through words. Kids pick up on that. So talking to parents, talking things through with parents, often giving parents advice on how to support their child, can be really helpful. Practical, good old-fashioned practical support, practical help, to support both the child and the parents emotionally and practically, I think is essential in all areas around working with families and children. Grace, you're frozen in a really funny way. I don't know if you can hear me when you're frozen. You look like you're about to blow us a kiss. I'll plod on, but you do look a bit strange there. I hope you can still hear me. Oh, she's disappeared. She'll maybe be back in a bit. Okay, yeah, she's dropped off the call. I might have to let her back in. So children and young adults, yep, she's back. Children and young adults respond really, really well to hypnotherapy because children and young adults have got really good imaginations. They're very imaginative, and quite often they're very open-minded. And they're quite often open to guidance and embrace change better than adults who've had, repetitive habits or repetitive behaviors. I've carried out this habit or this behavior for 25 years of my life. That kind of person is more difficult to work with than a kid who's been behaving or displaying some challenging behavior for a few months. I do really feel quite deep empathy for parents, because if you have got a child who's struggling at school or struggling with life or struggling with anything, it's hugely overwhelming. Like, who do you know? Where do you go? Who do you ask? A lot of people just think that the only option is for them to talk to the GP. And GPs don't often know about the benefits of hypnosis, and don't really know where to send kids. There are a few specialists in sort of child therapy that are available, and these things have to be sort of searched out. And then when you search out, what do you do? Do you go hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, counseling for children? Do you do art therapy? It's confusing, and it's a challenge as well for parents to choose what therapy is right for the kids. But it's also quite difficult, I believe, for parents to understand or to discern between what is a serious mental health challenge or a problem and what are more kind of common behavioral issues. A lot of the lists of things, the tick boxes that educators and specialists use to diagnose are things like the child finds it difficult to focus, or that if you're anything like me, doesn't stop talking, wiggles around, gets bored easy, likes conversations, can't stay in the seat, moving around the classroom. I mean, that's just me. I tick all the boxes for ADHD, and I really don't think I've got it. Just a bit eccentric. But those little eccentricities, those things that are just regular kid behavior, quite often are things that people look for. I don't know if you've ever heard of a piece of research that was done in the 60s called Being Sane in Insane Places. Has anybody ever heard of it? This is not in your notes, but it's just come to me as a research article. It's really old, but it's really interesting. It was more around adult mental health conditions. And I think it was doctors or psychiatrists or psychologists pretended to be mentally unwell. They went to their doctors with a list of symptoms that they knew would get them put in an institution. Once they were put in the institution, they stopped all of that kind of acting and behavior and just behaved normally. Their normal everyday activity didn't display any abnormal behavior at all. But it's a bit boring in a mental hospital. There wasn't a great deal to do. So one of the researchers used to wander down to the dinner hall and say, all right, ladies, what's for dinner today? And it was documented that he was obsessional about food. There was one woman who was a bit bored, so she would file her nails and she'd like do a bit of manicuring and pedicuring and stuff. Obsessed with sort of nails and hygiene and stuff was what it was documented as. And I think what the whole point of the article is that if you put this child has got something wrong with them glasses on, you'll find something wrong with that child. You'll be able to assign and tick those boxes. And particularly if that child is going through a really challenging time because, life's not normal at the moment and they're just acting out because of that, or things are, changing at home, maybe a new member of the family or somebody's died. And that can be a huge impact. Moving house, not seeing friends, all of those things that cause mental health challenges within adults cause challenges within kids as well. And sometimes what is normal acting out can be seen as abnormal behavior. And I do think parents really have a big challenge to decide, is my child mentally ill? Does my child have a problem, or are they just going through a phase or a challenging time? I think it's also really important to be aware. It's frustrating the lack of NHS help that's available for families. There's just literally nothing. Ali, who is one of our new teachers, she's a nurse, and she does a lot of work with children. She does diagnosis for ADHD with children, and you know, I think going private is often the only way at the moment to get that diagnosis, if that's what's needed, or to get more information about what's going on. There are extended waiting times for treatment, and particularly for who I tend to work with is more teenage girls who are self-harming or who are considering other kind of quite self-destructive activities or actions, even sort of ending life, is certainly being contemplated. By the time help is available for these young people, it's very often too late. So it's really important to know where to signpost people to, private organisations, different organisations. I think Megan's Space is a really useful organisation to know about, and Breathing Space. Megan's Space and Breathing Space. Breathing Space is more for teenagers and adults, and Megan's Space is just for teenagers and children as well. Megan's Space and Breathing Space, check them out and just have them somewhere so that you can signpost them to families, because there really is, for really poorly people, just sort of things like Samaritans at the moment. There's very little for children. Before I move on, Nicola, you've got loads of experience in kind of working with children. Are there any other organisations that you are aware of that are great to signpost families to, that are having troubles with children with mental health problems and challenges and behavioural problems?
The only one that I'm signposting to is Kooth.com, Kooth. It's an NHS website, but I don't know what it looks like because you have to sign in as a child, and I've never done that, but that's an NHS website. And I did find one the other day, I can't think of the name of it, to do with children who had Asperger's, and it was support around that, but I can't remember the name, but I'd have to look it up now.
Okay, yeah, if you do think of any, or if anybody knows of any other ones that are great to signpost other therapists to, do share them in the WhatsApp groups, the Facebook pages, so we can share those resources with each other, because it's sometimes really useful for us to have some things to signpost parents to. Hypnotherapy is recognised as a treatment option by the National Health Service and the Professional Standards Authority, the UK, which is the UK Parliamentary Regulator for Healthcare. And year on year, more parents are turning to hypnotherapy to help their children overcome behavioural problems, increase confidence, and tackle anxiety. Got a bit of a list of things that it's quite good for, that you may sort of see. Things like finger sucking and thumb sucking and hair curling and hair pulling, bed wetting and bed soiling, night terrors, nightmares and other sort of sleep disturbances like sleepwalking or sleep talking, grinding teeth, those sorts of things. Swallowing problems, that's interesting. Eating issues, food aversions and choking that might occur around different foods, and picker, which is not on here on my list of things to remember, but I have worked with a couple of children with picker. Picker's a bit like what you get when you're pregnant, you fancy eating cool. It's a desire or a drive to eat weird foods. I worked with a kid that was eating his own feces, and I worked with a kid that was eating sponge. Eating sponge does seem to be quite a common thing. Stuttering, yeah, definitely. Stuttering and stammering are definitely things that we can work with, because it's the Broca's area of the brain, it's actually quite often there's a reduced blood flow, so we can actually use primal imaging to help bring about messages to the mind, to the body, to increase the blood flow to that area. And we can also help children by getting them to slow down, speak slowly, because quite often stuttering is like, they've just got so much to tell you and I can't get it out fast enough. It's like an excited thing. So it could just be that, and anxiety can make it worse. But there's no real evidence to say that anxiety causes it. It's just that it's worsened by anxiety. And it does seem to be more boys than girls that are affected. Go on, Emma. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say I'm 38 and I still stutter when I get excited.
Get it out fast enough. So yes, stuttering and stammering, really helpful. Anxiety and stress, obviously, confidence building. I mean, if you've ever worked with anybody with ADHD, the main issues that I tend to work with kids who've got any kind of learning difficulties are confidence building. If you've been told you're naughty, if you've been told you can't do something repeatedly, you might even just believe that about yourself. So the majority of the work that I do with children who've got educational challenges is really just confidence building. We may come across people who self-harm. This is something that I've seen quite a lot of. I don't use trance work for people with self-harm, certainly not in the early stages. I might create a contract. In fact, what I tend to do is get the child to write their own contract of agreement that while they're working with me, they'll use EFT instead of harming themselves, to help get that emotional balancing feeling that they want, and we'll work together on the right words to use to create the kind of affirmations around that they can use to tap with, and that really helps. Exam nerves. Oh my goodness. It's such, we just squish kids and push them, and I don't even know that they even really learn that much anymore. It's all just about how to pass exams now, and it's incredibly stressful. I mean, I wrote a bit of a bloggy thing the other day on it, because I just see the impact, I see the effect in adulthood. So many people come to me and say, I'm stuck in this job that I hate. I chose this career path when I was 16 because my parents thought it was a good idea, or my teacher thought it was a good idea, but it's never been something I ever really wanted to do. So it might be that people have been kind of pushed into a particular career, and we get kids thinking about their careers really young now, before they've even fallen in love with what they love, before they've even got to know themselves enough to know what they really enjoy and like doing. We're already guiding them into a career and getting them to think about universities and things. So exam nerves is just a small part of it. I think the pressure that kids, that people put on kids, but the pressure that kids put on themselves is huge around exam times, and you can see people passing out and all sorts. Nail biting, and eating the skin around your fingernails as well, like literally chewing till you bleed. Bullying, rage and anger. Skin issues, skin disorders, eczema, psoriasis, little kind of hivey, bumpy, rashy things that are itchy, breathing problems, certainly, and sort of allergy type things as well, fears and phobias, and sort of problems associated with learning difficulties. So all of those things, big long list, all of those things are hugely benefit. We can really do a lot with hypnosis in supporting kids who are experiencing all these things, and some. I tend to see a lot of tummy aches and IBS. Mummy, I can't go to school today, I've got a tummy ache, or a headache. Tummy aches and headaches, and sort of, tummy migraines is what they'll tell me it's called, or they'll come with IBS symptoms. as well. So do sort of see, and I've got some really good, if you are working with IBS, I've got some really good reading recommendations I can send your way, because people don't need to suffer with IBS. There's so much we can do with hypnosis. So lovely Milton Erickson, my favorite hypnotherapist and influencer, really the founder of modern hypnotherapy, had a very solutions focused approach when working with anyone, but particularly with children. He was really keen to help children manage their own emotions, to understand their emotions, so that to understand their feelings as well, so that they can make changes to those emotions, those feelings, those thoughts, and those behaviors. Milton said that even at a young age, each of our clients, each of his patients, including children, knew what they were seeking. They knew the solutions to their own challenges in their own life. And he absolutely believed that even the kids have the solutions within them. They know all that they need to know, and they have the power to change. They just need to overcome natural resistance to change, or they need to overcome environmental challenges that are causing resistance to change. And when I talk about environmental, it might be that a kid is behaving in a particular way because they feel that that is going to please a parent or keep them safe in some kind of way, or prevent them from having to do things that they feel are subconscious level are dangerous to them. But that if they have got any challenges, the solutions are absolutely within their subconscious as well. Now, I do find that children, because they are so imaginative, and because they're in that kind of, mostly in that kind of subconscious headspace anyway, most of the time, that when you tell them a story, they automatically link up the meanings with the stories. They link up the stories or the metaphors to the literal happenings that are going on in their lifetime. So when they hear a story, they very quickly understand its meaning, and they take that meaning in their own unique kind of personal way. And when you look at a child's brain and what's happening when a child listens to a story, the areas of the brain that are responsible for emotions are very much activated. So when we can engage a child with storytelling, when we can get them right into the story, we can actually do a lot of really therapeutic work. When that story, and quite often kids as well, you present children with factual information. If you do this, this will happen. Please don't do this because it upsets this person. Or when you do this, this is what happens, the consequences of it. Those kind of factual informations, kids go, yeah, all right, yeah. They take it in, but then it's gone 5 minutes later. With a story, with a metaphor, they tend to hold that information for longer. They remember the stories for a longer period of time. And it has a more meaningful, a deeper impact than just presenting them with facts. So when stories are told with the intention of changing the way a child thinks or behaves or does things, the story becomes a therapeutic metaphor. So whatever kind of therapist you are, we're all hypnotherapists here, but whether you're a parent or a teacher or whatever you're doing, in whatever context you're going to work with kids, using metaphors, using stories can really help maximize a child's potential for change. So I just thought I'd ask a few questions, really. And my first question is, what's your favorite childhood story? I'm going to give you a moment to cast your mind back to when you were small. Did you have a favorite childhood story that you just loved? And did it have any kind of significant meaning for you? I'll share with mine. Emma knows already what mine is. Mine was Stone Soup.
Yeah, mine
Anybody?
was
Go on, Emma.
in it when we were doing this module.
Yeah.
You asked the question, and it turned out that we had the same book, The Magic Stone, when we were kids, and and it was always my favourite. And I think it's about, if no one else knows it, it's about a tramp who wandering through a forest meets the little old lady in a cottage, and she had a bit of a small holding and grew her own veggies, and this tramp said, "Oh, thanks very much for putting me up for the night, let me make you a lovely meal." And all he had in his bag was a stone, and
Magic stone.
she was adamant, "Oh, I've not got much, I'm just a little poor old lady, lived by herself." And it turned out, bit by bit, she says she had leeks and potatoes and, carrots and all sorts. She had milk from the cow. She had everything at her disposal, but she didn't appreciate it. She didn't think she had much, but she had the world, compared to this tramp. And this tramp made this feast, and he just put this magic stone in the pot, and all the rest was her ingredients. And he just showed her that she had it all at her disposal. And it was a really lovely story, because I just remember being a kid having it read to me, like, that woman's silly, it's all her stuff he's using, and it was like you wanted to get to the end for her to realize that it was all hers in the first place, and it took some tramp who had nothing to make her realize it. And that was always my favorite. It was the excitement of, will she realize, won't she realize? Will he get found out?
Yeah, and I think the story is about, really, the metaphor for me is like, we already have everything that we need within ourselves. We've got every resource we could possibly imagine. It's all there for us. We just have to recognize it's there and take it and use it and enjoy it. And I just love that story. And I think, Emma, you bought me the book, didn't you, for Christmas the year? I was like, yay! It's on my bookshelf.
It's a very, very small, 30-page ladybird book, but it was always my favorite go-to.
And the Elves and the Shoemaker. Do you remember the Elves and the Shoemaker? Go to bed at night. For me, that's about intention setting, and about manifesting. There's metaphor there as well. Grace, have you got one that am I challenging you to think of a story?
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel a bit sad right now because I can't actually think of this special childhood story, because yours was so wonderful, and you have this beautiful memory. Although I probably did, I think I would need some time to go back and think about that.
Have you got one that your kids love? Because you've got children.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's got so many. Yeah. One of our favorites is called On the Way Home, and it's about a little girl who basically falls off the swing, but on the way home she bumps into loads of her friends and makes up these fantastic imaginary things that happened to her. A woodcutter came and that's how she got her bad knee. And then a witch came and she tells her other friend that she fell over because the witch was chasing her. And then a ghost came. So makes up all these stories to her friend, but when she gets home, basically just tells her mum that she fell off the swing. So we love that one. So
the events of a journey and how you can, children take meaning from these stories. And if it's fun, if it's engaging, you can really direct the therapy session. Nicola, have you got a favorite childhood story?
The Magic Faraway Tree in Blyton.
Oh yeah, Moonface.
Yes.
And
Silky
pot pan or something. Yeah.
It was a bit of escapism that you could go up the tree into another land, and they were living this ordinary life, but they could escape.
Yeah, I love that. In the imagine, and they go to different worlds at the top of the tree every time. Maybe that's what. Did you used to climb trees as a kid, Nicola? Were you a tree climber?
No, I wasn't allowed to, but it allowed me to climb in my imagination.
Well, I was a tree climber. You couldn't get me from. I was basically hung upside down most of my childhood, I think, from a branch. But
Me too.
you too. But I think I can blame Enid Blyton for that. But she did like the famous 5 and the secret 7 as well, and I loved that children going on adventures together. That was always really good fun, because life is an adventure, isn't it? And I think allowing that, guiding our children to just be curious about life and see life as an adventure can really take away some of the fear that they're experiencing. So what makes a good metaphor? If we're going to be creating metaphors, we need to make sure we make a good metaphor. So I've just put here, a good metaphor will symbolically represent the child's challenge. I have used the word problem, and I know I don't like the word problem, but I have used it. But it will represent the problem that they're having. But it'll also offer a solution in an indirect manner. So without saying, that's what you need to do, it guides children to find their own solution within that. Because it's indirect, the child has to become mentally very actively involved in the process of making sense of the story and deciding kind of which parts of the metaphor of that story, or which parts of that story relate to them and relate to the challenges that they're experiencing. If your story is really fun and engaging, it'll just bypass any kind of conscious resistance. If they love Spider-Man and the story's about Spider-Man, you're in. If they love, I don't know, Superman and your story's about Superman, you're in. If you can use their language and use things that they love, or make it really fun and engaging, it's going to go in at that subconscious level. And even if the child doesn't quite understand the metaphor of the story, if they've enjoyed it and they can remember it, it'll go in and it'll be something that they'll reflect on. It's something that they'll play out over and over again in their mind. But the subconscious mind, I'll get it, and it'll make some of the connections with their own situation, and eventually it may make they'll get all of the connections. So bedtime stories are great for kids, and yeah, I think quite often I'll guide the parents as well, so that they can then deliver the bedtime stories using metaphors that are going to help. So I did actually write a series of little mini stories that parents could use, but then alter little bits of it, so that they could make it more relevant for their kids and for whatever they were going through. Often we present children with solutions, and the solutions may be presented to the children from a parent or from a teacher or from a trusted adult. But if the solution is discovered by the child themselves, if they found the solution to their own challenge, if the solution is their idea, well, it's so much more likely to lead to positive, successful change. And it'll also help them to build their confidence about them being able to find their own solutions to things. And that'll help them into adulthood. So back to parents being in the room. When I'm taking a consultation, if I can get the whole family present, I do. I like to see the dynamics of what's going on if I can. Certainly, I like to have a parent or a guardian in the room when I work with children at the initial interview and during the hypnosis session. I've never done a hypnosis session with the whole family, but I often do it with mum and dad or auntie or uncle or whoever's bringing them. And the reason why I do this is in my experience of working with children, all children are a little bit kind of like shy to begin with. Like, I'm just this crazy therapist woman. They don't know who I am. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Mum's brought me to some lady because I've got this thing going on and they don't know who I am and they feel a bit there's always a little element of shyness. So I think it gives the child a sense of safety when the parents are with them, and safety is an essential ingredient for successful hypnosis. If the child feels safe enough, they can relax. The parents being there does contribute to that sense of safety. And it's really important. I can't stress how important it is that the child feels safe with you and in your therapy room if they are coming to your therapy room. I mostly work on Zoom with children and families because, you know, I find it actually much easier because they're in their home. I'm in my home. I'm seeing into their home from my screen. I really like this way of working with families and with children. But if they do come into your therapy room, you might want to sort of set your therapy room up so it's kind of quite child proof, child safe, and it feels nice. So you might want 2 chairs, one for the parent and one for the child. And I always call it my hypnosis chair because that's a suggestion right there, or the magic chair. If it's kids, it's my magic. Would you like to sit on my magic chair? It's a big comfy one. I always with adults have blankets and pillows anyway, but I might add to that like a stuffed animal or a toy of some sort. And I do like my crystals, and I find that children are quite drawn to sort of polished stones and crystals as well. They like to have a look at them. They like to have a little play with them. I'm quite happy for them to touch things as well. And anything around you that can bring about a bit of a sense of fun, whether it's images on the walls or little toys or something like that, something that won't get broken or you don't mind it gets broken. Crystals are pretty good. Have a little play with crystals. I tend to work, if I'm working on Zoom, I usually have my screen in the back like this, but if I'm going to work with kids, I might use a funky backdrop. And if I know that they're into Marvel, I might use a Marvel backdrop, or put something behind them that, you know, they'll go, she must be cool because she likes Spider-Man. To give them you know, something that's going to help them to feel like they're in the right place. Lots of people tend to say, what if the parent is the main source of the child's stress? There's a real difference between a parent who is a stressed out parent and a cause of the stress and a parent who's an abuser. Very, very occasionally you're going to come across parents who are abusers, but in my honest opinion, and this is my experience of practice, and it's good to be aware of all of the issues. And in the course, we do look at safeguarding, and there's a safeguarding. We have responsibilities as parents, as therapists. But a parent, any parent or guardian or carer who's willing to bring a child to my therapy room and pay me money to do something that isn't particularly traditional, such as hypnosis, somebody who's willing to do like whatever it takes to help their kids, they don't usually fit the profile of an abusive parent. They may be stern, they may be very strict, they may be creating impossibly high expectations, but they're genuinely and usually very concerned parents who are actually just really loving, and they might just like want the best for the kids, or they want to live their life through the kids, or they want their kids to be the best at school. Usually with children that I've worked with, there's an element of sort of stress relief that I'm providing for the child. There's usually some level of anxiety going on there, or certainly, you know, high levels of stress. So it's quite useful to have the parent present so that the parent can learn how to relax too. Because if we can guide the parents to relax and the kids getting the therapy, then the parent's going to change as well and get the benefit. It's going to really benefit the parent to join in. So I usually say, just join in. And when kids are feeling stressed, the parents are usually stressed. They're either stressed about life, and that's what's causing the kids to be stressed, or they're stressed about the kids because the kids are stressed. And if the parents are stressed and the kids are stressed, the family are all stressed out too. So working with the parents, and if you get the opportunity to work with the whole family, gives everybody an opportunity to engage and to change if change is what's needed. Parents who sit in the room quietly are really focused on what I'm doing. It's like they're really looking at what I'm doing, and quite often they're in a little bit of a light hypnotic state themselves, just listening to me, just really focusing on what I'm doing. And quite often they're open to the positive suggestions that I am giving the child. So being present in the room is really helpful for parents. If I get a bit of a vibe, if I'm working with a child and I just find that the child is just unwilling to respond to questions, I might just, if they're a bit uncomfortable, because you can, and you can tell it's because the parent's there, I will just ask the child, do you want to talk to me privately about this? Do you want to talk to me privately about this particular thing? And then I'll ask the parent if they are willing to allow me to do that, get parental consent to do that. And I might just get them to step out for a moment while I just talk to the child in private. Usually if that's the case, it's usually they just want to tell me something that's not really major, like, I really like Spider-Man. I just wanted you to know. Well, my mum's not here. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's usually not anything really heavy. It's usually just like, they just want to tell me something that they just want me to know. I'm like, all right, thanks for telling me. That's really important. In my practice more recently, I was working with older children, and having a parent there was a little bit intrusive. We're kind of getting into more adolescent teenage years. But because I was working on Zoom, I actually felt it was quite safe to just have the parent outside of the room, so they couldn't hear. I got that parental consent for it to happen, but then I was able to chat on a more deeper level about what was going on in their lives and what they were experiencing and feeling and what was going on, at a more deeper level, because sometimes when they're that older age, parents can be a little bit like, I'm not saying that in front of my mum, no way. Or my dad, no. So I get the consent for them to be outside of the room, somewhere where they're away from listening ears. Having a parent observing a session means that you've got an advocate for the child as well. If they understand what's going on in the session, they can report back to the GP, they can report back to any other sort of teachers or anyone else that's involved with the child's progress or supporting the child. You might want the parent might want to report back to the doctor and say, this is what I saw and this is what happened and this is how it's helping. And also, if they're in that room, the parents are going to see what you do and how you work. They're going to talk with other parents, and you're probably going to get referrals as a result of that. So having parents in the room can feel a little bit like, oh my God, but I actually think it's really valuable and really helpful as well. And of course, not a pleasant one to discuss, but another reason why I have the parent in the therapy room is, many of the people that I work with are vulnerable. They're a vulnerable age, and a lot of them that I tend to work, a lot of people I tend to work with them are like teenage girls. That's just my experience of who comes through my door. And as a society, we have just been rocked, haven't we, by revelations about abuse that's happened within hospitals, within care homes, within religious organizations. Adults that were meant to take care of children took liberties. And so really having a parent in the room is for my own protection as well. Obviously I strive to be the safest person my clients will ever encounter. But I'm well aware that good people have been accused of things that they haven't done. And even if they've been proved innocent, it can be a huge challenge. So parents in the room, yes, please, unless they're sort of teenagers, unless they're really indicating that they're uncomfortable, get the consent from the parent to have a short period of time with them away, or carry out the therapeutic intervention while they're away, but in the next room, just one door between you, something like that, I think is about as appropriate as we can go. Think safety. And working this way on Zoom is actually really helpful in that way as well. If a parent gives consent for the therapeutic procedure, but the child declines, the child's right to refuse overturns the parent's consent every time. Once our child is happy to get involved, I think I tried to make it not seem like a therapy session. You've come to see a nice lady who's going to have a chat with you. We're just going to talk about fun things like, do you like sports? What, if you do, what sort of sport do you like? What team do you follow? And if they're a Liverpool fan, so am I. And if they're a Manchester fan, oh, so am I. We'll just embrace that. I want to get those rapport things. What's your favourite TV programme? What character do you like best on your TV programme? Do you play computer games? What computer games do you play? What's the objective of the game? What character do you play in the computer games? All those sorts of things. What's your favourite subject at school? What's your worst subject at school? What's your favourite celebrity? Why do you like them so much? Who's your best friend at school? Why are they your best friend? What's the names? And if you've got older kind of teens, like, what's your TikTok account like? What's your favourite social media platforms? Who do you follow? What you're sort of into? You need to kind of like really get to know them so that you can, just in the same that we do with adults, we can talk with them in their language. I'm all about being cool, which means I'm uncool because I'm not sick. I can't quite get my head around some of the language. I don't work with children very, very often, but I have worked with more children recently than ever. So yeah, interesting. Once we've got that lovely report, we know what they love. Get rid of the idea from your mind that when children are hypnotized, they're going to be all sleepy and relaxed in your comfy chair. Children will wiggle, they'll interact. When you do a magic carpet ride, they'll be moving. When you take them to meet the Spice Girls, they'll be singing along. When you've got them cheering in the football ground for the favourite footballer on the pitch, and then you get them to go on the pitch with them, you're going to see all the expressions. They're going to be kicking the ball, they're going to be wiggling around. They're not going to lie still on your couch. It's a very different experience from working with adults. Lots of interactive stuff. They're probably going to open their eyes a lot. They're going to move around a lot. It's a very different experience to working with adults where they close their eyes and go very quiet and calm. It happens more like that when they're sort of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, teenage years. When they're young, it's all about fun, storytelling activities, lots and lots of interaction there. So I have a few exercises which I do with kids that are more mindful activities that I thought I'd just share with you. And the first one is to do with mindful posing. So I like children to change their body posture. And does anybody know about body posture? Emma will do, I'm sure. When you pull your shoulders back and you stick your chest out and put your hands on your hips and you change your body posture, what happens?
your breathing changes for
Breathing
a start.
changes. Yeah.
Confidence. So if you're upright, your shoulders back, your chin's up, you look more confident. It's a bit like a mental mind map, but posture wise. So you can imagine you're confident. What does confidence look like?
Yeah.
Well, what does shy look like? Like no eye contact down. So it affects everything, really.
So when you raise your arms into the air like this, like I don't know, Hare Krishna or a born again Christian, you release serotonin, happy chemicals. Woohoo! Those happy clappy born again Christians know about it, don't they? Yay! This is what this is gonna make you feel good, make you feel like Superman. So I do Superman pose. Superman. I might get them to make a fist. Superman. Superman. So if you're not feeling very good, let's get them doing Superman poses. Let's get them, like what we do with adults, we want them in a more positive mindset before we work with them. They're in a negative space when they come in, flip them into a positive space. So stand with the feet wider than the hips, get the fists clenched, the arms reach out, stretching out as far as possible, Superman. And I might get them to shout Superman, Power Rangers, if they like Power Rangers, whatever they're into. My other one is Wonder Woman. You can tell what era I've come from. You know, standing tall, hands on your hips, legs apart. You know, look at fists in your hips, feeling strong, feeling confident, feeling powerful. You can pick any kind of superhero or person that they love. You know, it might be an army man or an action man. You rarely tell what era I'm from, can't you? But you're going to get them to take the pose of the person that they look up to as confident and as powerful and as strong. Get them to change the body, give it a name, Superman pose, Wonder Woman pose. If you're having a bad day, let's do your Superman pose. Woo, feel good. Just a change in posture. Instantly going to take them from a negative space to a more positive space. And then you're going to have better mindset for any kind of therapeutic intervention. Spidery senses. So while we're on the subject of superheroes, I talked to them about, should we turn on your spidery senses? Super focused senses of smell. What can your spidery senses smell? What can your spidery senses see? What can your spidery senses hear and taste and touch? You know, Spider-Man really is very aware and focuses on all of his surroundings, doesn't he? And this will actually encourage children to stop, to pause, to focus their attention on the present moment. While you're in your present, you can't worry about the past and you're not going to be concerned about the future. You're in the present moment, so get them into that present moment. And also it's a focusing activity is really good. How many times do you see people pointing at work, pieces of paper on a desk going, focus, pay attention? Nobody's teaching children how to focus. Nobody's teaching children how to pay attention. This is a really good exercise to help them to focus, to help them to pay attention. Turn on your spidery senses. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you smell? Focusing in on each individual activity. It's single tasking. And I do love a bit of Spider-Man breathing. Remember the spider fingers? Get it in. So I might do a breathe in for 4 and then a breathe out like a Spider-Man, which is like a yogic breath, isn't it? Breathing in for a 4 and then a rapid breathing out is kind of what we would do in our mindfulness kind of meditation practices. But we can tell the children that as they're breathing out, as they quickly exhale, they can blow out any bad feelings. And you can imagine that there's webs flying out of your fingertips. And as these webs fly out of your fingertips, all the badness is leaving, all the bad feelings, all the bad thoughts, they're all leaving your mind, leaving your body. Maybe you can listen to the sound of the breath coming out of your mouth and really quickly use that sound to help get rid of those bad feelings. So, you know, those kind of spidery senses and Spider-Man breathing, just basically taking a relaxation breath and getting rid of that tension, using that's going to be great for kids. Sometimes do things like a mindful jar activity. Anybody come across that? So it's more of a, if you're doing like a group setting thing with kids or you might want to make one and have it in your office. It's an activity that teaches children how really strong emotions can feel very big and can be like a bit of a storm, and can really take hold of you, but how when you stay still and when you breathe and slow down, you can find peace, things will settle. So I just get a big jar, and I fill it almost all the way to the top with water and put a big spoonful, here we go, glitter glue. Who doesn't love glitter glue? I know it's not very good for the environment, but there are environmentally good ones you can get. Glitter glue, or even dry glitter into the jar. There we go. You've got your glitter pens. Yeah. Oh, is that from your inner child work? Yay, I love it. Oh, brilliant. So put your dry glitter and you got your glitter glue into the jar and just put the lid back on, give it a shake, and what you'll find is all the glitter will swirl around inside the jar. And I talk about how, you know, when we get upset, we feel like things get jiggled around and our emotions swirl around inside us like a whirlwind, and it can look really, and it can feel really hard. But then what we do is we just get them to, we put the jar down, we get them to look at it, and we just say to them, imagine that the glitter is like your thoughts when you're stressed or you're mad or you're upset, and see how they whirl around and make it really hard to see clearly. You can't see through that jar, you can't see clearly, and that's why it's so easy to make silly decisions or to do silly things that you don't like hitting your brother. When you're upset, you hit your brother, you don't mean to, you don't want to, you get upset with yourself for doing it, but it's because you've got all these emotions swirling around and you can't really think straight. Don't worry, it's normal, it happens to us all, grown-ups too. Now, when you sit down and when you're still for a couple of moments, keep watching, see how the glitter all starts to settle down and the water clears, and your mind works in exactly the same way. When you calm for a little while, your thoughts start to settle down and you see things much clearer. It's just a way of giving children a visual something to help them understand. And you can get them, if you're feeling really upset, if you're feeling really angry, take yourself away like the jar, sit down and just let your emotions settle for a few minutes, and quite actually giving them the jar to take, to look at, to watch it settle, gives them about the right amount of time that they need to allow themselves to settle too. So those sorts of things. Progressive muscle relaxations, really, really good. Shoulder rolls, breathing in as you roll your shoulders up to your ears, and breathing out as you roll down and relax, and just doing a few. I might model a few shoulder rolls, breathing in and breathing out. I might go backwards and then should we go forwards as well, just to make sure it's nice and even and we're not wonky. You know, little things like this. And I might, instead of doing a progressive muscle relaxation, I might talk about sleepy bodies. So I have a little script called Sleepy Bodies, and I just start, do you remember what it feels like to go to sleep? Yeah, I do. Well, feels really good, doesn't it, to drift off to sleep all cozy under a blanket. Feels really nice. And I want you to think about your toes now. And I want you just to send your toes to sleep. I did this with a group of beavers. Oh my goodness. There was one little boy that were really verbal. Yeah, they're asleep now. Yeah. And then I did let your bum go to sleep, and I had this like little ripple of giggles because bottoms are hilarious when you're a beaver. Yeah, my bum's asleep now. And they were like, I loved all that little giggly stuff. It was really funny. Sleepy tummy and sleepy head and breathing easy. That's it. And of course, some of them were, making snoring noises, because that's what you do when you're asleep. Everybody snores when you're a beaver. And then I sent them off to sleep and got them to feel lovely and sleepy and relaxed. And just listening, always listening. And now you're in a lovely, relaxed place. You're in a lovely place where I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you an amazing story. Special place is really good for kids, but instead of being on a beach, you might want to surround them with toys and games and possessions and love and happiness, as well as like peace and a glass of wine and the things that we might give our adult clients, altering it so it works better for kids. And then start your story. Do you remember Milton talking about my friend John? It was in one of the recommended readings at the beginning. I think it was in one of the required readings, the Milton Erickson Case book one. Anyway, there's where he's talking about working with resistant clients who will be like, I can't relax, I can't go into trance, those kinds of clients. And what he got them to do was to imagine that they were telling their friend John how to relax. And I want you to teach your friend John. I'm going to give you the instructions, because I'm the therapist and I know I've got really good skills and I can guide you really well. But I want you to imagine that you're telling your friend John to relax the muscles around your eyes, and get you to tell your friend John to relax his forehead. I want you to talk to John and give him advice on what he can do to overcome this challenge. So just in the same way, I quite often I'll begin my story, and I've got an example here, and I've just put once upon a time. Always got to begin with once upon a time. There was a boy, and he had the same name as you. Even looked quite a bit like you. He had the same hair, the same colour eyes. And he was even about your age. However, this boy was a bit different. He was really special. And he was a scientist. He worked in a fantastic, top secret laboratory. So fantastic and so secret that he could only access it from a top secret place with the power of his mind. He needed to use magic words. And I'm sure you know what those magic words are. And he needed to count from 1 to 10 very slowly. And once he had his eyes closed, he could enter into his fantastic, secret, top secret laboratory. Shall we go? Let's go to the fantastic laboratory and have a look around. Just close your eyes. Say the magic words, not out loud, just inside your mind. Now, let's count very slowly with your eyes closed from 1 to 10. Grace is off into trance. And get to 10. You can step inside your fantastic laboratory and have a good look around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Stepping into your laboratory. 10. That's it. It's a large and beautiful room. It's full of funny little noises. A number of curious silver-coloured instruments standing on spindle-legged tables, whirring and emitting little puffs of smoke. Tall shelving unit with what seems like millions of bottles of different shapes and sizes, all filled with liquids and potions, all different colours. Seems to be a control room area with lots of levers and buttons and desk with flashing lights and dials. Go have a look round your laboratory. And if you like, pick things up. Have a good look at them, examine them, smell them. Maybe you can read some of the labels on the bottles. When you have a really good look around, I'd like you to find a spot where you can work, as today we're going to be mixing magic potions and making a simply marvelous medicine. When you found that spot, let me know by nodding your head that you're ready. And then I would be like, let's mix a bit of happiness and a bit of, you can tell I'm influenced by Roald Dahl, can't you? George's marvelous medicine, a bit of Harry Potter thrown in there. And, you know, it's basically pharmacy technique mixed with control room technique, but I've tweaked it. But we can actually have a bit of joy. Let's get a bit of joy, a bit of happiness, a bit of that feeling that you get when you kick a football and whoa, you feel amazing. Let's put a bit of that in there. What colour's that? And get them really interactive. Now I want you to drink that potion down or rub it into your skin, however you want to make it work. But it might be like a protective globe around you if you rub it into your skin, or drink it and it gives you whatever you want. When you go to sleep tonight, you're going to sleep really, really well. When you wake up tomorrow, that magic potion will have taken effect. When you wake up tomorrow, you'll feel confident, you'll feel happy, you'll feel peaceful, you'll feel that you can choose to be more in control of your emotions, whatever it is that you feel you need. I just wanted to give you a few examples. So I thought just before we finish, I'd put you into pairs and think about some stories, come up with a few metaphors between you that you feel would help. So choose a condition that you think you might get to work with. It might be thumb sucking, it might be hair pulling, it might be anxiety, it might be bad dreams, it might be swallowing problems or eating issues. Food issues can be quite a challenge. It might be nail biting. And I'm just going to put you together. In fact, I might just shut up and let you have a discussion, because there's only 3, isn't there? So we might just do it as a 3 and pick an issue. And I want you to kind of have a bit of a session of throwing around a few ideas of metaphors that you think might symbolize that particular challenge. If you've got your own children that have got issues, you can maybe bring something with them, or if you know children that you want to work with that are having these children, you can bring them, and we'll have a go at creating a few metaphors between us. That sound okay? Yeah, I'm going to stop recording for this bit. And let's do this little activity.